Hi, welcome to this month's newsletter. And it's been an interesting month. I think we could be calling this month a month of holistic awareness. It's been such an interesting month for me, and I hope you found it also very stimulating listening to some of the podcasts and the healthy bites. It's been a variety. We kicked off with Nicole Bilgemer, who has written that wonderful book, Healthy Homes, Healthy Families, which sits behind me on my bookshelf because I believe it is a must for every household to be aware of what chemicals and toxins and challenges, environmental stressors to your health that are in your home. It's overwhelming to think that we are exposed literally to tens of thousands. I've heard one estimation being of 130,000 different chemicals, and 2 or 3 thousand chemicals are added each year, and we might be excused for thinking they've all been tested. Sadly, only about 5% have had any rigorous testing, and often they're tested just one chemical at a time for a limited period, which is not how we are exposed to them. We're exposed to them in combinations, and it's a synergistic effect of toxins that we're concerned about. Now, that seems incredibly overwhelming and perhaps a little depressing. However, in order to solve a problem, it helps to know what that problem is. And if you don't know that there are environmental toxins within your home that are potentially affecting your health, then that's something you need to, I think, become aware of. And the good news is that you can reduce your toxic load by 80 to 90% just by making informed decisions about what you buy in your personal care products, in your household cleaning products, in your food, etc. So this was Nicole Bilgemer. We really focused on molds, but we talked in general about environmental toxins in the home. And of course, with so much rain on the east coast of Australia and the floods, this is something that is front and centre. And then we had the opportunity of speaking with Nicole's collaborator on her courses on mold, which you can go on to Dr. Sandip Gupta's website. And that was just a fantastic episode. And I, as a holistic practitioner of over 40 years, felt I learned so much about approaching a holistic approach with our patients. So Sandip was just fantastic, and that was a real revelation, and followed up by Professor Pete Smith, who takes a holistic approach to allergies and chemical sensitivities. So it was just great to be talking to those three, and it really allowed me to reflect in my healthy bites on what holistic actually means. And listen, holistic is not just some new age philosophy. It just happens to be the way the body works, and it happens to be the way the planet works. And while I totally get why many health practitioners and people may feel skeptical or reluctant to engage on this level because we love simple solutions in life, but the reality is that the body is a whole thing, connected. It's not just an ear, nose, and throat specialist, a dentist. It's not a musculoskeletal system. It's not a nervous system. It's not a digestive, respiratory, cardiovascular system. It's all of those things. And how they all tie together is something that we all need to be engaged with. And this is another theme of this podcast and our health program, which incidentally is about to launch, Unstress Health, look out for that, is that while the world we live in becomes increasingly more complex, the solutions are remarkably simple, accessible, cheap, and effective. And if that's not a compelling reason for getting involved in your own health, well, I don't know what is. Then we continued our exploration of this pandemic, and I could not resist by giving you the highlights of the Australian government's COVID treatment forum, which is open to the public. It's a 2-hour forum, and it dovetailed into a theme that we explored at the end of last month, which was based on a British Medical Journal's article. Now, British Medical Journal, very respected, one of the oldest journals in the world, very respected journal, ran an article called The Illusion of Evidence-Based Medicine, and made reference to the problem being that what we have is a pharmaceutical industry that pays almost everything for the science in medicine. The science in medicine is paid for almost exclusively, directly or indirectly, by the pharmaceutical industry. And in the coming weeks and months, we're going to be exploring some of those connections. But they engage key opinion leaders. Key opinion leaders, or KOLs, are great product champions for the pharmaceutical industry. And if evidence is anything to go by, they have now a revenue of $1.2 trillion. I have described the last 2 years of this pandemic as nirvana for big pharma. We have friends of science in medicine making major decisions for our public health. And I think the fact that the pharmaceutical industry pays for the science in medicine, and the fact that there is a group of people who, hand held on their heart, call themselves the Friends of Science in Medicine, without any hint of irony about what that actually means, is a measure of how far the pharmaceutical industry has influenced all levels of government and media for that matter. Remember, we don't have news outlets anymore. We don't have journalists that much. We have media outlets, and journalists, many journalists throughout this pandemic have unwittingly become PR and marketing officers for the big pharmaceutical industry. So I feel that if we were really being honest, the Friends of Science in Medicine should call themselves the Friends of Big Pharma, or if they were being really honourable, they would call themselves the Scrutineers of the Science in Medicine, because that is really what we need, to scrutinise the science in medicine, which is largely funded by the pharmaceutical industry, whose main responsibility are to their shareholders, not to public health. And to any regular listener of my podcast, they will know the P's of the pandemic and how public health is placed at the very bottom. We have power, politics, patents, professors, peer pressure, psychosis. The P's go on, but there's no question that public health comes to the bottom of the list. And at the end of that episode that I did on the forum, I gave you an example of what a government who is really focused on public health does for its population. And that was an example of the government in India from the state of Uttar Pradesh, which has a population of 240 million. So by any measure, equivalent to, if not greater than, many countries in the world. And what they issued for their population was a combination of vitamins, pulse oximeters, ivermectin, and they were really focused in August or September of 2020. So when the Delta variant hit, it was called the Indian variant, remember that? And you would have expected millions and millions of people to be just dropping dead in the street, which didn't happen. And if it would have happened, you can be sure that the Western media, the PR and marketing agents for Big Pharma would have been there taking photographs to scare the shit out of every single one of us. They weren't, because it didn't happen. And people will say, oh, it was underreported. I don't buy that. If people were dropping dead by the millions, Western media would have been there to document it, advertise it, and literally ram it down our throats. But they didn't do that because the government of Uttar Pradesh's main priority was public health. Remember, government by the people, for the people, a very noble idea. Sadly, I think what we witness in general is government by corporations for corporations. And to that effect, Australia has just elected a new government, which I'm very grateful for. I think any government should be changed after 10 years. And a government that has a problem putting together an integrity commission, a government that throws out an Indigenous document, which our whole country could be very proud of, should be very proud of, and could build a whole society around. I really believe that. The Liberal government just dismissed that. And of course, its whole role in integrity and in inequality and the whole story about climate change and all that. I have some misgivings about Labor governments because in Australia, the Labor governments of Western Australia, Queensland, Victoria were the most draconian in their support of Big Pharma in how to manage the pandemic. I don't know that the other state governments were that different. But I think a change of government is a good thing. And to see our Prime Minister commit to the Uluru Statement of the Heart is something that I think was very important, inspiring, and something that I really look forward to. So it's been a big month. The big month is ahead. I hope you are enjoying the podcast. Look out for Unstress Health. Yes, Unstress Health will be a whole series of resources, and we've curated, now that I've done over 250 podcasts, it's all a little overwhelming. So what we have been working on in the background is taking the best of those podcasts and putting together what's called Unstress Lab. And Unstress Lab is an opportunity for us to pick out highlights for you, for me to be able to comment on those, because so often when I have guests, they say things and I just wish, I had just asked them this or said that. They made such a good point. Well, if you're a member of Unstress Health, the Unstress Lab Season 1 is already in the can, 12 episodes focused on the 5 pillars. In coming seasons, we'll be exploring regenerative agriculture, we'll be exploring public health and politics, we'll be exploring men's health, women's health, children's health. Unstress Lab is going to be a curated version of our weekly podcast, which I hope you enjoy as well. I hope this finds you well. I hope the coming month is a good one. Until then, this is Dr. Ron Ehrlich. Be well.